a certain Toaru series, one of the franchises that I've been a big fan of for a fairly long time. It's one of those franchises I find it hard to get into if you're properly informed. Often, people are just not getting some facts right and end up dropping the series subsequently. Which is why I made this video to inform anyone that's looking to get into the series but are still on the line. So without further ado, let's get into it. A certain series known for its diverse cast of characters, deep lore, well animated action sequences, and its really loyal fanbase. The series lore is one of the deepest you can find out there, and it tries hard to ground all its crazy concept into reality. And how they achieve this is truly spectacular. The series rewards you when you put in enough effort, and the effort required would most likely put off most people at the start. That's why we're here after all. Now looking from the outside, you have a plethora of similarly named animes, which most likely raises a few eyebrows, so which one you should watch first. Before that, we first need to take a look at its setting. A certain universe is set in our modern world where supernatural power is achieved through science and magic. The story is primarily taking place in Academy City, a city that is said to be 30 years ahead technologically from the rest of the world. The city is dedicated to producing students with supernatural power called Espers, with a certain magical index being the main series. Adapted from a light novel series, Index tells a story through the eyes of a high school boy named Toma, who has a mysterious power in his right hand, following his adventure after meeting a nun hanging off his balcony. Her name's Index. The story is about escalating conflicts between two opposing sides of power in the world, the magic side and the science side. The story progresses by employing self-contained stories to move the overall bigger plot forward, which you won't notice until you get past the opening arcs. Arcs is used for setting a theme for the stories. The theme and genre of these stories jumps around often. Sometimes it's an action fantasy brawl, sometimes it's a more slice of life, sometimes it's a sci-fi action, which makes the anime rarely feel repetitive. But that also means your enjoyment of Index at any point depends on your taste in anime. Even so, I do not recommend skipping any arcs at all, instead focusing on getting through and get the main idea from the story before moving on. There's also a couple of things to be mindful of. Being a light novel adaptation, a lot of details got left out of the anime which can match up some plot points. The character that took the biggest hit from this is Toma, with a lot of his inner dialogue giving him characterization being left out, and his fight being reduced to a less interesting version compared to what you can imagine for the wall of text in the right novel. If you're the reader type, I recommend reading the light novel, it's better than the anime. The cast, especially the female cast, are set up in a harem but not also in a harem manner. You'll see what I mean when you watch it. Another thing is the amount of characters introduced. A lot of characters not getting enough development past the arc they debuted in. And that's where the spin-offs comes in, giving more characterization to existing cast members and fleshing out the world even more, being much more focused on more consistent themes. One of these spin-offs adapted from the manga, a certain scientific railgun, telling the stories through the eyes of one of Index's female lead, Misaka Mikoto, one of the highest ranked Esper in the city, and her adventure with her groups of friends. Taking place exclusively on the science side so far, Railgun dives deeper into the details of Academy City through the occasional slice of life and self-contained arcs. The strength of Railgun lies in their themes, the cast being much smaller to Index allowed Railgun to give more characterization to their characters compared to Index. Being in a shared universe, you can expect occasional Index cameos and crossover with varying amount of importance. Railgun often gives extra info on certain points in the Index storyline, sometimes to the point of experiencing the same story from different perspectives, taking a well-made arc into a phenomenal one, and that's what sold me on the series in the first place. Railgun does suffer from excessive shenanigans and cliches, primarily from the member of the main cast like Kuroko, while Index also have some form of these shenanigans like Index. Depending on your taste, you would either love it or hate it. If you can look past that, Railgun offers a new perspective to the series universe, and managed to be able to stand up on its own, not needing to rely on Index too much. Another known complaint with Railgun is its employment of anime original content. Changing the main idea ever so slightly from the original manga. Personally, I'm fine with the way they go about doing it. It allows them to possibly fill any gaps left behind by the original source, which could either improve or devalue the original idea. I believe the people behind any anime should have creative freedom to adapt the source material into its anime in whichever way they see fit, especially in the next spin-off I'm talking about. A certain scientific accelerator is one of the examples of taking a widely regarded as dog manga into a decent anime. Now taking the perspective to the highest ranked Esper named Accelerator. It too gives detail to background information not limited to only the science side. I find the anime to be pretty average compared to the rest of the selection. Even so, for what it had achieved from its source material, it is an accomplishment. I do not recommend watching this anime first, as it heavily requires context from Index to understand. Now with all this knowledge out of the way, how do you get into this? If you are set on watching the anime, there's two main ways to go about it. First, there's the more popular release order as shown here. Now I need to elaborate something. While some people took the route of watching Railgun before anything else, as I myself also took that route. you'll be missing some context to better your enjoyment of railgun, especially in the later seasons. That's why I don't recommend the less popular chronological order shown here, because of some events technically happening first, but instead referencing things that happen down the line, which if you don't know the context, would lead to some confusion. But whatever order you choose, you might still end up confusing some facts, and get things mixed up somewhere, especially in Index 3, which is why you should get advices from the community. I recommend the Kamashiland Discord, which was very helpful in getting me started, and it's very active. I will leave the link to the Discord in the description. I recommend you check it out. What's that? You still wanna watch Railgun first? Alright, I'm not gonna stop you. At the end of the day, you can watch it any way you like. Railgun can be watched without watching Index beforehand, but Railgun assumes you have some knowledge of the Index storyline. What about Accelerator first? Alright, no. First, you're insane. Second, go watch either Index or Railgun first. End of conversation. Okay, but for anyone who wants to take the reading road, I recommend you go ask the people over at the Discord. Using the link in the description, they are much more knowledgeable than me. Now on to the verdict. So is it worth? Hell yeah! The series rewards you when you put in enough effort. The point that it pays you off is really satisfying. I recommend this series to any who's looking for a shared universe anime, like something like the MCU. Something that have a really deep lore and extensive world building, drawing inspiration from various mythology and science fiction, and it's also action focused. The series is hard to get into, and that's part of the series' charms. Hi, if you're still here, thank you for watching to the end of the video. If you know a friend who's looking to get into this series, send them this video. Let me know what you think. Are the point I brought up justified? What is your opinion on these topics? That's all for today. Leave a like on the way if you enjoyed this video. See you next time.